Hello. Welcome to the Seeking Heaven, the Near-Death Experience and Other Phenomena channel. I'm your host, six-time near-death experiencer and evidential medium and afterlife speaker, Tamara Caulder Richardson. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Hit the bell so you can get show alerts. We have different shows coming up every week, so you've got to stay tuned. Also, like and make comments below. That really helps. And check out our membership perks. We have some phenomenal membership perks, and any donation toward the channel really helps. So let me tell you about our exciting speaker today. This is a real treat. Very unique. I mean, it's almost like a unicorn, this speaker we've got. Very special talent, very unique person. And before I bring them on, let me tell you a little bit about them and their background. So today's guest is I've talked about I was going to present new healing modalities, things that you haven't heard of, and here we go today. And it's also fascinating. We have Ted Winslow, and he is an award-winning musician and creator of Soundsynctech, and he's going to explain what that is. But it's energy-filled music that heals the body. And he, has an extensive background with the music business, as well as he has a BS in music and audio engineering from the University of Colorado. And he also owns his own recording studio called Big Country Productions. But he's involved very much so in this healing side with the sound healing research. He's done a lot of that. He's going to talk to us about that, about the biophotonic imaging, and how he trademarked his system, how he can show you the results, where it increases vibration and healing within the body. And he also, maybe he'll tell us a little bit about the WellPoint hypnosis method. So let me bring him on, the musical talent of Ted Winslow. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, you are fascinating. I said you're like a unicorn. I don't know if you've ever been called that before. You'll have to tell your kids.
That's a first, but that one's going up on the wall.
Yeah, you'll have to put like a little cowboy hat on him or something. I think we should start from the beginning. And I let me put one of these things. I love some of these. They're terrific. These images of you, because you really, are global. You are really all over the place, and you have a beautiful studio. The building, everything's beautiful, and you are like me. You're working all the time trying to help humanity with it's actually beautiful music. I was listening to the Angel one last night, and it was very calming. So tell us about you first. Like, how did you always love music as a little kid? What made you decide to go to learn more about music? And I think you were telling me at one point, we were talking on the telephone about, you said, well, I could go for music, but I like the engineering side. So maybe, let's kind of start with that.
Sure. There wasn't a very big musical background in my home when I was growing up. My mother played the piano, but she was very limited in her abilities with what she played, that it would be Christmas carols. And so you can imagine being August and you're hearing Christmas carols. Nothing wrong with Christmas carols, but when you're hearing them in the summertime, I was like, oh my God. So
here we go again.
Yeah. So I was always at the dinner table, like most kids, tapping out a rhythm, right? And she'd be like putting her hand, stopping with that. So I got into drums in elementary school, and then that kind of led me to go to guitar in high school, and became really big with the self-studying on guitar and self-taught, and that I started taking some music theory classes because I wanted to know more about how these notes were working and how they related to each other in music. And I thought that was kind of something that was missing from a lot of the guitar players when I was getting together and playing with, so to speak. We could talk about a bar chord. So I did that and kind of got into some high school bands and realized that there was a need for a singer, and I hadn't croaked a tune in my life. So
really?
Yeah. And and one day, I'm embarrassed to say, I was in the typical shop class that all the guys are in, which we walked out of. And I heard all of these women singing in the hallway, and I happened to look in the door, which was the choir room, and as a high school man, I'm like, wait a second, there's all these women that are in there. So I immediately gravitated to go into choir, and not knowing how to sing, I sat next to an
Oh my
alto
gosh.
and I tried to sing all the parts that she was singing. And that's how I became a first chair tenor. And then
Wow.
the next semester, the teacher's like, now my senior year, she's like, you know, Ted, you really should try out for this Arapaho Singers. That's where I went to high school at. And it's an exclusive club that was a class that I became an a cappella group in high school singing that. And I was also playing,
Wow.
my dad would take me down to improv night and I'd play the guitar in some of the clubs there. So I knew that music was my path to go to, and went to a local university and started studying there. And at the time that I was studying my classes, getting the chords down, studying music, and was a studio musician. A bass guitar. I'm playing bass by this point. And so I got to, that kind of was my bread and butter. Playing that took off, became easy for me, could play any style. And so got to play on a bunch of people's songs, if you will, and playing that. And I happened to be looking through the glass, meaning that as I'm sitting in the studio and I'm playing, there's an environment they create for us to capture that sound where we have to be quiet. But on the other side of the glass, these guys are all walking around, which was the producer and the music engineers. And between takes, I was going in there figuring out what they're doing. I'm like seeing these blinking lights and gear all over the place. And I'm like, man, what they're doing was making me sound phenomenal. I mean, I thought I sounded good already, but it was making me sound even better. Come to find out that one of the local universities, University of Colorado, had one of the top 3 engineering programs in the nation at that time. This was like in the 1980s, 1990s. And so I immediately switched into there, minored in voice, and started engineering with it, playing. So I was entertaining record companies of the day, and just a great way to immerse myself into this world. And of course, you have to play piano. I was minoring in voice. I played guitar. I was playing bass in a band, entertaining record companies, and engineering for my degree. So I got the full gamut of this whole thing. And it's kind of cool thinking about now where we're at in 2021, that I've been able to see this industry from one spectrum all the way over to another spectrum. So what I mean by that is that I was there on the analog days with now kind of like archaic equipment to what I can do now with a computer, to how synthesizers have evolved from analog to FM, to I build my own guitars. One of the pictures that you put up.
Yeah. Which one? This one?
Not that one. It's the one with the. Actually, I don't have that picture for you. Okay. Now that picture right there. Go back to the other one. So what's interesting about that one is that is a classical guitar. It has nylon strings, and you think guitars use magnetic pickups to pick up the frequencies, and you can't see the pickups in those. This company is a Canadian company that had built that for me, and it is what's a MIDI controller. I can control it as a MIDI instrument, so I'm actually playing the 2 keyboards through the guitar and the guitar at the same time.
Wow. And then what is this printed thing on the guitar here? Are they holes, or what is this?
So there's a couple switches that are, one's a volume, one's a mid control, one's a low control, and one's a high control. And then the little circles, I can scroll down through a MIDI program or scroll up to a MIDI program. So if I have, say, a MIDI program of bagpipes, I can program it to play bagpipes. And then I want to go into sounding like a hard rock guitar, I can hit it down to the patch which where that. So it's an easy way to cycle through with MIDI to get to where I want to go. MIDI was the time being developed by Dave Smith, which is one of those instruments, and that allows, so it stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. It allows keyboards or MIDI devices to talk to your computer through messages, and you can control them through 1 through 27 127. Means nothing to anybody, but to those who are really nerdy, I just gave, they'll understand what I'm saying.
Okay. So my husband will like it. He'll go, wow. Yeah. And it's funny because I've just know through, him. I mean, look at how much it's changed. I mean, even that whole industry where you'd have to go through a label, and now people can, they can do this themselves, and they can have media studios, and the quality can be there. They can download, they can be their own production studio, and the same quality that they would get years ago in a very expensive studio.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I mean, people are recording in their kitchen. There was a recording I was listening to that this guy had made a composition off of the sounds of his dishwasher, because you can record that and sample that and then manipulate it. So where I'm actually going with this is pertinent to
Wow.
what I do, is
Yeah.
that everything we deal with was energy, and everything is dealing with sound. So
Yeah.
everything around us is a vibration, is an energy, and is a sound. And it's just how you can kind of manipulate that and change it for better or for worse.
Okay. So how these wow. Okay. So let's talk about that. Energy and sound. How do you perceive that? Are you getting channeled information? Or do you hear things like, oh, what is that? How does it come to you?
It comes
These
to me in
different albums.
a variety of ways. And I want to quote Nikolai Tesla. We all know
I knew
him.
you were gonna say. I knew you were gonna say that. He came to me in a dream 2 weeks ago. I'm like, Tesla, what are you doing here?
He's like, if you want to think of the universe, think of terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, right? And so, and it's interesting. I got a little story here. I want to kind of go onto that, and then
Yeah,
I'll finish
dude.
answering the question. So he kind of started with some photomagnetic stuff and energies that he would have his friends over to the house, and he would turn off all the lights, and he would stand on this plate, and then the lights would come out and his hair would stand up kind of on end, that he was working with the energy on that, just to kind of ooh and awe everybody, probably around in the cocktail hour at the turn of the century, so to speak. And so years later, I become involved with a doctor who teaches out of the University of St. Petersburg in Russia. And he has developed a medical device which they use there in Russia, and they use them all over the world. And he'd heard about me, what I was doing with frequencies, and it deals with biophotonic imaging, which is the same concept of that. So we're talking photons, right? And photon is a measurement of light with the energy that's dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, for what I do with the music, it's able to capture the human energy level, and the human energy field is more what I want to say, through light, to show where, like, if our energy fields are depleted in some area, to how they're being filled up. And where this became important with me in my career is that him knowing what I was doing with music, there was a medium now that people could see or feel by using his system that showed how quickly it was healing the human body from whatever they may have gone through. So, like an example, we wake up in our day and maybe there's bad news on the TV that we might hear. And a lot of the stuff that is at 440 hertz. And I'll talk about the hertz here in a second. I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole, and I apologize, but it's going to come back around, I promise.
Sure, sure.
So as a form of hertz, we're all listening to everything pretty much in 440, or what is called equal temperament tuning. What that means is that I have my guitar and I want to play with the band. I'm going to tune my band with I'm going to tune the guitar with the band at that frequency so that we can all play together. Somewhere along the lines, they said, well, you've got to use this 440 hertz because it's easy to modulate between key signatures if we want to switch into that. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But it's a very dissonant frequency. And that's where I learned later through my studies and in music that getting away from a dissonant frequency and realigning our energy fields and our human energy system back into our natural state of being, and each one of us is different, that's where it led me kind of going on this path with working with the frequencies. Okay, so you're coming back saying, where does this energy all come into?
Sure.
I'll get a lot of messages that they'll come to me a lot of times in the morning, or I will just stop and seek out a place, and it'll start to be able to come into me. And that's how I'm able to pick up what's the next thing that I need to do, meaning what's the next compositional piece. All of these albums that I've created kind of have an energy and a theory that kind of go along with them, because I wanted it for the listener to be a listening point that they could either A, listen to the song and be able to change their energy field if they've been like shocked or depleted from their by negative energy, and
Yeah.
fill up really quickly in a matter of 6 minutes. And B, for someone to be able to put that on the back and just take the journey away from the norm and let the music unfold out for them throughout the whole compositional piece, which would be the album on that sense. So there's frequency of the fairies. There's
Right.
you know,
Let me pull some of these up while you're
yeah,
talking, because I actually want to go through each one, but I want to ask you a question
sure,
real
let's do
quick
that.
because real quick. Okay. So going back to the 440 megahertz, I understand that a band has to tune all their instruments so they can be in the same range, they can play together. So does that mean if you turn on the radio into like a top 40 or whatever it is, and you're listening to whatever, you're saying that if that creates the normal 440 range, if that creates dissonance, listening to music could actually create anxiety in people theoretically?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
You
Talk
think,
more about that, because I want to talk about why, what's going on, and then the solution more, and then we can go into more, because that is something I've never even thought about.
oh,
I'm
sure.
going to be honest.
So,
Does that include Donna Summer and disco?
unfortunately, it does.
And the Bee
But
Gees too.
but
Oh,
right. But don't let that. There's cognitive memories that you'd created with that, right? That could be of a good time, of something that you remember from that point in time back then in that place, right? But
okay.
if you think about I've worked with I've been with some of the Olympic athletes, and and I used to play semi-pro football. So how do you get yourself into that zone, right?
Right.
You want to be able to be into that zone. You want to be pumped up. Well, my music probably is not going to help you in that sense, because it's supposed to
Mm,
recharge you and bring you back to your natural energy field, right?
okay.
Back to your higher self. But if you're going to go out and compete in football and be aggressive, you throw on some aggressive music that is there, the 440, you tend to get pumped up, and you'll see that in the
Right.
locker rooms. You'll see those Olympic athletes before they're going out. They're going to have their headphones on, and they're getting in the zone. They're
Right.
visualizing what they're doing. They're getting aggressive. They're putting on their game
Mm-hmm.
face, which
Mm-hmm.
is fine. It's totally fine, but it
Mm-hmm.
can be destructive. How do you come down from that? So
Got it.
earlier, I talked about a little bit of my background, that I was playing as a studio musician and entertaining, playing with an original band, and we were entertaining record labels and all of that. We'd be playing till midnight, and you come out of these venues with 100-watt amplifiers just pounding you with
Right.
440 hertz. You can't. How do you come down? How do you relax? How do you
Right.
deprogram from all of that? And that was part of the beginning, that was like, what about this, a different frequency, 528? And now you're kind of like, wow, okay, it's filling in those gaps that may have been depleted from me.
And I want to mention something. Because my husband was on Capitol Records, and that was part of our life for a long time, and he was and touring and so forth. And it was a pop band. Again, I guess you still, whatever, this 440, but I have seen plenty of musicians that when they're playing, how do they bring it down? And so they just try to calm down. And then some, not with us or people I've directly seen, but I know that some do it through drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
There is a better way, because your body's not going to be able to sustain that for long. So and I think this is good news, because so many people are looking for things for anti-anxiety, whether it be essential oils. I'm not saying any of those are bad. I love essential oils, or
And those have a
vitamins.
frequency of their own.
It does. It is frequency. Like I've noticed, this is a great example. And I love these examples because people listening, I know you know this like the back of your hand. This is the first time they've heard all this. So, for example, even what I cannot have fake perfume. I've got to have really high quality essential oils. Now it bothers me if I don't. And I like higher level frequency, like frankincense and myrrh.
Oh yeah.
Roses, lavender. I was telling this at another show like TMI, but I actually buy soap, this frankincense and myrrh. It raises my energy. The vibration is higher. It does something to me when I do that versus if I got just something, at the grocery store. So I think that, and foods have a vibration, a greasy hamburger is a different vibration than a homegrown tomato. So the same thing with music. I love how you're getting us to think differently about that, and that there's a time and place. Like you said, if you want to get pumped up, if you're going to do an athletic thing or pump weights, at the gym, you want to go, woo, you want to, get some kind of like metal thing going on there. But otherwise, there's plenty of times in life that we do want to bring it down from a long day, and we do want to find a way to go within in our breathing to do that. And that's why I want to go into what your music really does. And let's see, there you are working in the studio. And I want to talk about this Soundsynctech too. I want to show a couple of your things. Should we just start with this? I know you've got fairies and different ones. I'll just follow your lead.
Well, sure. Let's actually talk about angelic sound healing, the one that you just had up there.
Good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And in fact, let's do this for the listeners because I'm so appreciative of them taking the time out of their busy schedules with it. And they hear me talk about how great this music is, that let's give away a free digital copy of that album. Now, that album is actually an Amazon bestseller.
Wow.
And I'll explain how that came into me. But as they're listening to this, if they go to my website, to tedwinslow.com, and they're going to go into the store and select this album, you're going to go to checkout. And upon checking out, it's going to ask you, there's going to be a place that's going to ask for a coupon code. Type in radio, RADIO, and it's going to zero out the balance. And then you'll be able to it's going to ask a couple more questions, to make sure that it's not, those robots on the internet
okay.
And
like, are you human and that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. So then it'll allow them to go ahead and download the album. You can download the whole album for free. If it's asking for credit card information, please don't put it in. It doesn't work on iTunes or Amazon. It's just from my website because that's a whole different arrangement I have. But that's my Amazon one of my Amazon bestsellers. It's far and above.
That is so incredible of you doing this. So all the listeners, if they go into tedwinslow.com and enter, and they put this in, they get the whole Amazon best-selling album.
Yep.
That is normally what, $12.99 for free?
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is so kind of you. Wow. Oh my gosh. So everybody support Ted. Do you see how awesome he is? That is so kind. Wow. Thank you so much. And I know that the listeners, so write in the chat, thank Ted for the awesome album. Thank him, because this is he did, you don't have to do that. So this is very kind. And this also, tell us what, listening to this, how it's going to help us out too. Tell us how this information came to you and the technology behind it.
So like 440 hertz, people explained earlier on to there about how it's dissonant and how people are using that for standard tuning. And you kind of go back with on seeing where it came from. And one of the pinnacle places was an individual by the name of Joseph Goebbels, who was a part of he was the Third Reich minister for Nazi Germany, and this was before World War II broke out, said it is of utmost importance that we use this frequency and this tuning. And it's kind of bizarre to think about that this guy is like Austria, Vienna, Italy to London, some of the greatest places that had produced so much music with Bach, Beethoven, Haydn, Tchaikovsky, I mean, I'm missing an abundance of composers of those eras on those epicenters through centuries that now.
Debussy, one
What's
of my
that?
favorite. Debussy, one of my
Yeah,
favorite.
yeah, yeah. Right. Chopin. Um,
Chopin.
and so in Stravinsky, so all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's like
Oh yeah.
after all these years, these guys doing different tunings, well-tempered clavier, Haydn was using 444, an angelic frequency. And so they
Oh
switched.
yeah, 444.
Yeah, they
But
switched.
is it really an angelic frequency?
I'm going to say yes. I mean,
I love that number. I love
yeah,
it. I get it all the time. 444.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, how many
Okay.
times? 333, 444. I get a
Yeah.
lot of 444. I'd have to go back and look at I've got the specific meaning on that. I'll get that to you in a second.
Ooh, cool. Okay.
So they're like, okay, they go ahead and follow along with this. Well, we know shortly thereafter World War II breaks out, and
Mm-hmm.
you can only imagine now everything's 444. And the historians, you think of what they did with the Blitzkrieg, they were giving them a bunch of amphetamines, and here's this. We spoke earlier about dissonant frequencies amping you up and what they did with that. So, okay, where am I going with this? And
Well,
Ted,
wait. Okay, but just bear for a minute. Let me make sure I understand. This is interesting. So this Goebel, he a freak. He was a Nazi.
yeah. He was
Okay.
the Third
Okay.
Reich
Wait.
minister.
Oh my God. Okay. So he was promoting dissonant music or
The frequency. He said this is going to be the musical standard tuning. Why would he? He's not known for anything necessarily, so to speak, when
yeah,
it comes.
positive. It's not a positive thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So he's recommending this lower tone dissonant
Yeah,
frequency. Oh,
yeah.
that's not good. Why, to
No,
upset people, to put them in a state of concern, anxiety, worry, that kind of thing?
exactly. Well, that's my
Ew.
best guess. I mean, we're kind
Okay.
of hypothesizing here
Yeah.
and
Okay.
running our own conclusions or
Sure.
opining. So,
Okay.
yeah, okay. And
Okay.
I get a lot of people that are like, okay, well, that's conspiracy theory. Okay. So if that's conspiracy theory, there's a phenomenal guitar player. The guitar player for Toto, Steve Lukather,
Mm-hmm.
has more Grammys probably than fingers on both of his hands. And he is writing a orchestra soundtrack. And of course he writes it, but he needs the orchestra. He goes to Vienna to record this soundtrack. And as he sits down with the orchestra in Vienna, it's completely out of tune and he can't figure it out. And he talks to the conductor and they're like, okay, let's retune this. He goes, well, I've retuned it from America at 440. Can you tune to 440? And the conductor's like, we're not going to tune to 440. So
what happened? He had to tune his up?
he had to go back and adjust the tuning. To meet the orchestra back here stateside. I can't remember what he did. I just found it interesting that here out of that area, Joseph Goebbels is saying you got to use 440, and then you go back years later, and they're like, no, we don't use that tuning here.
That didn't work out in this part of the world.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you think that we're bombarded by that because if you watch TV in the evenings and they're going to go run these advertisements at you in the commercials, they're running drug companies that you have these drugs or you're going to have this problem with you and what's playing in the background. And then insurance, you're going to be in drastic car crashes. You need to make sure that you're protected. It's instilling fear. So with music, I call a lot of that fight or flight, right? We've heard that with, say, horses or a flight animal where a lion is going to be a fight. So take away the 440, we're not going to be so much in the aggressive mode or that fighting mode, so to speak.
Wow, this is really blowing me away, Ted. I mean, I am so enlightened, and I love the examples you're giving, but it just changes how I view things. Like I never even thought about it, and why it's even more important. And a lot of people intuitively go, "Hey, I don't think I want to watch a lot of TV." They're intuitively are tapping into that, but this is a reason why. The frequency's lower, and God knows what kind of signals are coming through on top of that. And not to be weird, but I'm just saying, I don't know.
Sure, you have a bad day at the office. Those who have to go to an office and you work on a project that you poured your heart and soul into, and the boss is kind of like, "This is terrible," Boom, there's a shot right inside your energy field. You driving home and you're listening to the traffic report as you're in the traffic. Boom, there's another spot in your energy field, and it kind of depletes you from feeling, good on there. Throw on some Ted Winslow sound healing music.
No, absolutely. Well, but the thing is, it's not just, to me, it's not just music. It's actually interacting, from what I'm understanding, it's interacting with our own frequency. And if our frequency is it's been blasted during the day.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, especially during the COVID, people were all freaked out, looking at everybody like they're an enemy. The energy was not great. I'm just gonna say.
No, right, and that's a great example. I have a lot of people contact me that have sleeping disorders, that they can't sleep at night, and they're having problems sleeping at night, and then they're thanking me because we direct them to, they can pick their album of choice that they want, and now it's like being able to give them an opportunity to be able to sleep at night. There was a firefighter who contacted me that was on 9/11, was there on ground zero for 15 days.
Wow.
And so the horrific stuff that he had seen, he wasn't himself afterwards, and he wasn't able to function in the capabilities probably that we are with our families around holidays and all of that, because of the haunting images that he had seen there. And he was on probably some medications, and I'm not prescribing anything here, so I want to be clear about that. But as he started listening to my music, it drastically changed. He was able to relax at night and get a full night's rest that's not so chemically induced, so to speak. And it's interesting to see now with a lot, because as I've been on this path, it's great to see, as I talk to doctors or nurses or PAs and stuff, that they're showing how music therapy applications are helping out, that I've been seeing with this. It's helping with developmentally disabled individuals, autism, Alzheimer's and dementia, behavioral disorders. I have an individual that I'm really good friends with him now, and we talk a lot on social media because the states kind of keep us separated, and he'd found me through the radio. And he was in a really, really dark place, just kind of like a dark individual. He had been shot and paralyzed from the gunshot, and didn't have use of his lower legs, and he was put into kind of like an elderly community. And he was the youngest one that was in there, and just down. And the music uplifted him and just completely changed his outlook on everything. And now he's got that Christ conscious spark inside of him, and he's been dealt some blows that I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. Oh, I hear ya. Wow.
And he's the funniest guy too. He's got just the greatest sense of humor. So hearing him say what this has done for him, and then hearing the jokes, it's just like, that's just like my payday right there.
No, absolutely. And here's the thing. I know that even the people that are very, very positive in life and everything's great, you could have one horrible thing set you back. I mean, like Saul in the Bible, he lost his whole family. I mean, that might do it, to bring you to a dark place. So, we're not promised roses. So we need things to help us stay on point. And especially if it's not, narcotics or, drugs or alcohol, but something that, I mean, there are no side effects except good stuff, with your healing frequency. So I want to talk about the spiritual aspect too. I know for a fact, knowing you, I know something else is going on. Now I'm not asking, we're not saying, oh, it's verified, proven, whatever. I'm just saying that your thoughts on the spiritual side, when people also listen to this, because we are spirit, right? So it's interacting with our spirit.
Absolutely. We're all put here. We all have spirits. Spiritual one way or the other. Some might just be a little darker than others.
Right. So when they listen to the healing sound, let's do the first one with the angel frequency. I don't want to hear how that you came up with that, but how does that also interact with our spirit? Because I feel like, our spirit has an effect on our body. Like you said, if we just get a lot of bad news, that can do it.
Yeah.
It could be, we're eating the wrong foods. Maybe we're allergic to something we shouldn't eat it. It can make us off.
Drinking the wrong water too. Make sure you're drinking clean water. That's another big one.
Oh, you mean filtered water?
Yeah. Yeah, some of the stuff that they're having in the water these days is kind of like, and the reason why I just say that, I'm not one of those conspiracy theorists, but in my studio, I happened to just mess around with a pitcher, and the stuff that I actually saw that came out into a filter, I could visually see it. I wasn't even testing it. I'm like, I'm not drinking this.
Ooh. Yeah, well,
and they have to chlorinate it to keep it. They have to chlorinate it to keep it clean. And like I was over in on the Eastern Bloc. Think of those pipes; they're hundreds of years old. What's in that water? I mean, they tell you not to drink the water out of the pipes.
Right. Well, we've had a Kangen machine for years on the same, to promote that, and some people go, "Oh no, you need to do the whatever kind of water. That's the other kind." But any kind of filtration, I think, is helpful. So you're right, but it's just being cognizant of what you put in your body and how it makes you feel. So let's go to the angel sounds and tell me how this occurred and what does this achieve?
So actually how that kind of came into me, I am a motorcycle enthusiast, and so I decided to take a spiritual journey. I'm here in Colorado, and right up to Alaska. I thought, how great would that be to be able to ride through Alaska, the last frontier, on a motorcycle? And I had like 20 guys that were going to go with me, and then slowly, probably talking to some of their wives, they're like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going on it. So I ended up taking a solo ride, 5,000 miles up to Alaska. And as I was going on the Alcan Highway, nothing out there, right? Literally trees and asphalt, just in this beautiful territory, buffalo in the middle of the road. And one of the few cars I see, there is a bumper sticker that had, "I fly with angels." And I thought that's so appropriate, being on a motorcycle on the other side of North America, away from my home. And my wife got a message. She's like, "You need to stop by St. Teresa." There's a shrine that's there in Juneau. And so I got my motorcycle on a ship. I had to tie it down, and there's no roads going in and out of there. And I went to the shrine of St. Teresa and walked the labyrinth and just had this epiphany that there's something much more to come out with the music, and I'd come out with 2 albums dealing with this. And it's like, go with the angelic frequencies. And I mean, just even the pictures that we're taking were coming out just magical. And so I came back, and that's what started coming out. A funny story is, as I'm recording that, as I'm finishing up with the album, you record it, and then you do what's kind of mixing so that synths sound good with the guitars and these levels. And then to get it out to the world, or to the digital medium, or to a CD, you have to kind of reformat it, and it's called mastering. And as I'm remixing and mastering, it was Joe Field, and I'm doing the track, and I'm switching some of the levels and changing it, and all of a sudden the computer completely goes out. And so I have to fire up the whole system, and I get it back going up, and I get the tracks up. It's like another 30 minutes later, going back where my ideas with where I'm mixing and this on it, the computer goes out again. And so I'm like, I just can't believe this. And I bring it up a third time, and I work to get it up on the third time. And I feel this just omnipresence just right behind me. And it's like, leave it as it is. And I was like,
wow.
I got, I'm getting hair standing up on the back of my neck. And so that's what came out. And it's just so amazing with what those tracks and those frequencies are. And they wanted me to share that and this journey with other people. I think that might be part of it. And it's funny, because if you think the frequency I use with Joe Field is creating beauty in your life. And that's what it was, that I was destroying what was already beautiful and should be kind of left as it is. everything jovial means beauty of God.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. And I actually have a framed image drawing of Jophiel, because Jophiel is also known as the angel for creative people, for writers, artists, musicians. And that's also my husband's July. They're also, and he's a musician. So I bought it for him for his birthday. So I know about him. I got angel pictures.
That's right. I'd forgotten all about that.
Yeah, he is. He's the patron saint of musicians. Yeah. So, and artists and so forth. Yeah. So, wow, that's I mean, I know we talked about that earlier pre-show, that you work with different angels and so forth, and there's different ones. They work together in sequence. So you are channeled from the angelic realm, and I think so many of us are, if we just pay attention. A lot of people just don't realize that. So with this, let's go back to here. So, and then I will play a sample. So with the angelic sound healing, the goal is to creating beauty in life so the person can see beauty once more.
Yeah, it's kind of like all of the different, like we were talking about, like the angel numbers, right?
Yes.
444, angels are near and they hear you, that when you're talking. So if you see that, there's something that they probably want you to hear. Ironically enough, there's the frequency that we're going to be listening to, the track that is going to be on there, which is going to be Uriel. And that was the frequency that came in to me for Uriel. But if you're talking about a healing aspect, what better way to have these angelic numbers? Now, I didn't use 666 on the album.
Thank you.
So, clearly for obvious reasons. And I didn't want to bring controversy to it or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I found that you're kind of manipulating it here and there by a little bit. So I use 663 on that, which is still all sacred numerology. You're dealing with multiples of 3, so to speak. And so, and that's the other thing with these frequencies, especially when you're talking like solfeggio. You're dealing now not only with what we're hearing musically in frequency, we're also dealing with a geometry, so to speak, on this frequency. So there's like a physics that we're listening to with dealing with music, dealing with these frequencies.
I want to ask you a question on that. Okay, wow, we're getting deep, Ted. So if some of these numbers, these megahertz, and we're talking about 444, or like I get 333 a lot too. I like 222. But anyway, getting back to the numbers, these sacred or like, let's just stick with 444, the angelic number, the ascended masters angelic. Does it actually have because this is a musical frequency and energy, but does it also have a visual representation of that? Because I'm wondering if these frequencies going out are actually creating these beautiful portals and like imagery too. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about hertz. I probably should have started this off a little bit earlier. Everybody will notice that my music compositions that I have is going to have a frequency or hertz number that's beside of it. And so what that is it's the body of electrical or multiple frequencies that make up or create it. It's the vibrational frequency. The mind will determine the vibration at which the body will function. So we have the law of vibration, right? And have a greater attractor field of imbalance to imbalance and disease. Higher ones are going to enable the body to release holding patterns of imbalance, empowering the body to heal. So I use frequencies as a way that, because that's each frequency. If we say 432, okay, that's the one of my favorite frequencies. It's the key of A.